My name is Sam Neff, and I was born in Clovis, New Mexico, and have lived there the rest of my life, except for 17 years away from home, and in the service, and then in medical school. I had a government program of training pilots that we thought we were going to be flying border patrol, but we never did do that. I got 90 hours flying time before I ever went in the service. I enlisted in May of 1942 and was not called up until August of the same year, and then I went in to the aviation cadets and went through the primary and secondary and then the advanced training. That was in Lubbock, Texas, which is close to my hometown. At the end of our training, there was about 20 of us that were selected to go to an A-20 school and fly A-20s. However, that fell through, and they sent us to Clovis, New Mexico as co-pilots for B-24s. We stayed there for 3 or 4 months, and then they transferred us to Charleston, South Carolina, where we trained an instrument, and we flew the ocean patrol out of there for a while. Picked up our aircraft and in New York, and then we flew to Natal, Brazil. And from Brazil, it was just right after Christmas of '42, we flew across the Atlantic to Africa, and we had one interesting experience then. We weren't too good at instrument training by that time, and en route the weather just closed in, and we would go out over the ocean and come in, and we were getting ready to make a beach landing because we were running out of fuel, and we looked off to the east, and there was some lights, airport lights making a cone over an airfield, and it was a British base, and they directed us how to get there. We landed there and spent a couple of nights. Moved on to Tunis in Africa, where we were doing additional training. Actually, we were waiting for them to finish our landing field in Italy, and this was near a small town called Cerignola. Then in February, we flew on in to Cerignola and started our missions. First 10 missions, we had no escort, so we did have some attacks by ME-109s, and fortunately, our squadron was a group of good pilots. We learned how to adjust the airplane by going up or down, and to bring more guns to bear on anything that was attacking us from in it. Then we would change our formation to meet the attack. We flew some pretty dangerous missions. The first time we went into a place called Steyr, Austria, and we lost 5 airplanes out of our group. We had a photographer on board, and he took a picture of an ME-109 shooting down a plane next to us. He took a picture of that and blew this up human size, and in our briefing room, this picture was right there for us to look at before we went on another mission. After about 10 missions, we had beautiful cover from P-38s, and a little later, we got escort on every mission. It reduced our losses considerably to have these fighter pilots flying above us. The P-51 was the second group that followed us. They would follow us all the way to the target and give us cover. And interestingly, if they had any problem with their aircraft, they loved to get in under us and have an escort back safely to where they were going. After they would fly missions covering us, they always flew to our airfield and they'd fly down the runway upside down just to show us how hot they really were. We, at about halfway through, we had rest and recuperation on the Isle of Capri. And an interesting thing happened to me there. I was riding on the vehicle that took you up and down the hills, looked down at the bottom, and when I got down to the bottom, there was 2 people from Clovis, New Mexico there. And as it turned out, before we left, there were 5 people from our small town on the Isle of Capri. And the Germans did us a favor. They attacked the harbor at Naples and did enough destruction that we got an extra 3 days at the Isle of Capri. I flew as a co-pilot most of the time, and one of my jobs was to go on missions with the new pilots that were coming in to help them get used to combat circumstances. And this is my favorite story. We were flying on our second mission to Ploesti, which was the oil supply for about a third of the German supply of fuel. We lost an engine, and with one engine, a B-24 could stay up with the group with one engine lost, but we lost a second engine, and we dropped out and turned around to go back home and lost a third engine. Fortunately, when we got down to 10,000 feet, we were able to start up another engine, so we came back and lived in Bari, Italy, making it over 10,000 feet of mountains and across the Adriatic without any trouble. So that's about as close as I ever came to losing it all. We flew what they call 50 missions. However, actually, we flew 37 sorties and got credit for one flight. If we went to someplace like Ploesti, Steyr, Austria, or the Hermann Göring Bearing Works close to Switzerland, we got double credit. So they call that 50 missions. We left Italy in the bottom of a Liberty ship in about the end of November of '44, and again I was back in my hometown of Clovis, New Mexico. It was rather unusual to send anybody to their hometown for additional training. I had a funny experience there. My pilot was a captain, and he was quite a joker. And he called me up one day and said, I've got you a date tonight, and we'll meet you at a place called La Vista's, which was a bar and dance place. Small town, about 10,000 population. You knew everybody there. And when it turned out, when I arrived there, he had me a date with a well-known prostitute in Clovis, New Mexico. I got out of there as fast as I could. From there, I went to California for redistribution and additional training. We came to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we kind of felt sorry for the poor instructors that we had there. They were going to increase our capability in emergency procedures in the B-24. And to do this, of course, they'd pull an engine on you or do something. Whatever it was, we'd just reach over and shove the throttles back forward and say, as long as they're running, we're going to use them. From there, they sent us to Victorville, California, and we flew training missions for navigators with the new radar system that we had. Let's see. While I was in Italy, I had another experience. It was kind of interesting. I was out in a training mission with a bunch of the new pilots, and we were training to come in and make landings short of fuel on a short runway. And unfortunately, there was a ditch at the end of the runway, so I got in the prop wash of the plane ahead of me, and the plane tilted almost 90 degrees, dropped low enough to knock the one wheel off, and we made a crash landing. B-24s were notorious for exploding and catching on fire, but we all luckily got out of that without any scratches at all. My next job was to fly co-pilot for the group commander on the next mission that we flew. And we had the first radar equipment, which was a big bulb thing that was attached to the fuselage of the B-24. And it caused a lot of drag on the airplane. We were running out of gas, and we had to land as soon as we got back into Italy, where there was airfields. We landed, and as we taxied onto the hard stand, we ran out of gas. That was the only decent time I got any whiskey in the service. You know, they used to give you a drink after every mission, and we landed.
We're going to have to cut you off.
That's all right.
They're ready to load the bus.